all these immigrants are coming in, a lot of them are going to be unemployed. So the Trudeau government knows this, yet they're still allowing these people to come over. So that definitely just shows that this isn't about economic growth. It's about destabilizing the country, in my opinion, and it's also about trying to buy votes. It's the most inverted that it's ever been since 1987. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Canadians believe that housing affordability is being worsened by immigration, according to a new poll. So let's get into this and discuss what is going on there. So 3 in 4 Canadians say higher immigration is worsening housing crisis. And this is a poll that was put out. So a large majority of Canadians agree that higher immigration is fueling the housing crisis and putting pressure on the healthcare system, a new Ledger poll suggests. And I would agree with that. I would say the portion of where this is affecting things the most is the rental market, because right now you've got a toxic combination in the rental market. You've got landlords that are getting out of the rental market because it has become literally so unaffordable to rent out a house, even if you are thinking that there's going to be massive price appreciation in the future. You are so far cash flow negative, it is impossible to do it. So you've got landlords getting out whilst you need new rental supply, because you've got so many immigrants that are coming in. All these immigrants that are coming in, they're not buying homes generally unless they're doing it fraudulently, because they need to build up their credit, they need to build up their employment history in Canada, and all that takes time. So all these immigrants are flooding in, and we don't have the houses and we don't have the places to rent. So what's happening is a lot of these immigrants are living in third world living standards. They're living in rooms and sharing rooms with other people and living in unsanitary conditions. That's happening in most major cities across Canada, and it's a sad situation we're in. And how did we get here? We got here because of the Trudeau government. They have had this mission to just keep ramping up immigration despite the economy worsening, despite everything getting worse in Canada for Canadians, and they just continue to push this. And I think Canadians are pissed off. They are really pissed off with what's happening. That's what's coming out in the poll. Nearly 2/3 of respondents, or 63%, said the volume of newcomers is also adding pressure to the country's education system. So, you know, it's not just the housing crisis that people are thinking that this is affecting things. They're thinking it's affecting the healthcare system. They're thinking it's affecting education as well. And it would, because if you think about it, a lot of these people, they're not getting jobs. We know that even the Trudeau government has admitted that they think that all these immigrants are coming in, a lot of them are going to be unemployed. So the Trudeau government knows this, yet they're still allowing these people to come over. So that definitely just shows that this isn't about economic growth. It's about destabilizing the country, in my opinion, and it's also about trying to buy votes, because a lot of these people will be turned into citizens eventually, and who are they going to vote for? They're likely going to vote for people like Justin Trudeau, especially where the people are coming from, and considering the demographics of these people and the way that they vote right now in these different areas, which are predominantly immigrants. So anyway, let's continue on here. So I want to talk about housing affordability, because this needs to be talked about. You know, housing affordability is absolutely at a crisis point right now in Canada, as you can see on this chart. This is an old chart, but you can see how housing affordability to buy a home has just become so unaffordable in this massive housing bubble, which really started around 2002, 2003. That was when home prices just left disposable income and just went to the moon. So this has not been a rational market in that sense, and the housing market vastly unaffordable for most people. And when you look at this chart, which comes from Hilliard Macbeth at HMacB on Twitter, great guy. I've had him on the channel years ago. Unfortunately, due to regulatory reasons, he can't come on the channel anymore. I would love to have him back, but he can't. So anyways, growth in Canadian house prices, household debt, and after-tax income. So you can basically see the major indexes for prices, Vancouver and Toronto, and the Terranet National Average. And then you can see the CPI, and then you can see down here, you've also got median after-tax income. So you know that basically incomes are just not growing at anywhere near the pace of what's happening right now with home prices and what's happened in the past. This is has just created a toxic combination. And if you look at the oil market as well, if you want to know what's going to happen with the economy, the oil market is always a good indicator. And definitely considering what's happened, considering everything that's happening in the Middle East, everything that's happening in Ukraine, you would think that that would put a lot of upward pressure on crude oil prices. But you would be wrong. You would actually be wrong, because crude oil prices have come down a lot. If you look at crude oil prices, this is a monthly chart. So we just opened up for December here, and you can basically see that obviously we had this run up during 2021 and into 2022, and then we hit this peak and we've come back down and we've corrected. We're sat below these 2013, 2014 levels here, and we tried to break out again and failed, and now we're coming back down again. And this is despite everything that is going on with geopolitics and what's happening in the Middle East and what could possibly happen with sanctions that could affect global oil supply. The oil market is pricing in a major global recession. I'm not just talking about Canada, I'm talking about a major global recession. So that will impact Canada, obviously, and Canada is already being hit from the massive housing bubble that has been built up. And part of the collateral damage of this housing bubble are the people that move here, are the immigrants. And obviously you've also got the people who live here, that's a given. But a lot of these people who are moving here, they're going straight into that housing crisis. So those who already live here, even though they are having a rough time as well, definitely let's acknowledge that for a second. You have to also bear in mind that these people, essentially, they're not coming with bags of money. It's not like lots of YouTubers insinuate and lots of politicians and the mainstream media likes to tell you that all these people are skilled immigrants and they are just the reason why home prices are skyrocketing, because they're just bringing in all this cash, and it's just a BS story. What's really happened is rampant speculation, and that has driven the economy to become more and more dependent on the housing bubble, which then creates more of an issue. And you've also got the yield curve, and I want to go back to the yield curve. It's been a while since I've talked about the yield curve, and the yield curve has not changed, guys. Still, the yield curve is inverted. It's the most inverted that it's ever been since 1987. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will, because this is not a good thing when you've got the yield curve this inverted. You should never have the 10-year bond, which is the green line here, trading well below the 2-year bond. So you can see the 2-year is at 4.12% and the 10-year is at 3.49%. And this is Government of Canada bonds. And what this tells you is we have major problems in the economy. Why else would the bond market be saying we're going to have lower rates in the future? The Fed, the Bank of Canada, they don't generally cut interest rates unless there's a problem. Now, every time during these hiking cycles, they've hit some sort of economic crisis, financial crisis, and then we saw rates being dropped down to the floor. But right now, we're holding at this high level. You're seeing the Bank of Canada saying, no, we're going to hold rates for this. Yet you've got the 2-year that's falling in Canada. It's pricing in significant amounts of cuts. And we've got the GDP reports that came in. And even though they modified that last one, we're technically in a recession. I don't care what anybody else says. I believe we've been in a recession since last year in Q3, Q4. I believe that's where we really went into the recession when you look at the data. But these numbers that the government puts out, we can't trust them because they're adjusting them to this CP lie that is entirely not accurate. But even given inflation and where it is, you have the bond market where you can literally buy a 10-year bond and it's 3.49%. So that is telling you something about where they think inflation is going to be in the future. And 9 times out of 10, the bond market is right. So it's worth paying attention to this, and it's worth taking the time to explain this. And I hope you guys understand that it is not a good thing. You should never have long-term rates that are lower than short-term rates. And when we have that, there is usually a reason. And 9 times out of 10, we are heading into a recession when that happens. And even in that one case where we didn't hit a recession, we saw growth going from 13% to 0, and that was in the 1960s, I believe. It's just kind of crazy to say everything's going to be fine, rates are just going to come down, and the Fed, the Bank of Canada, they're just going to softly land this economy. Meanwhile, we've got purchasing managers that are saying there are major problems, manufacturing is declining. We've got all these things where the foundation is being chipped away at, and there are big problems out there. Canadians are waking up to the fact that Immigration is just adding to the problems that we have in the economy, and it's not really going to solve any at this point. And a lot of reason why the birth rate is so low in Canada is because that, guess what? People cannot afford a home. They cannot afford a place to live, and they are sick and tired, and they don't want anybody else coming into the country when they know that Canada can't even house its own people at a decent price where people can afford to have, you know, just a normal lifestyle, not an amazing lifestyle, just a normal lifestyle. I don't think that's too much to ask for in a first world country. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, you might like this video here. You might like this playlist here. If you're looking for a VPN, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. Use a VPN to get around the censorship laws in Canada. Make sure that you're safe online. I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for your support. Take care.